All right, hello folks, and welcome to ConnectEd Working Circles Introduction to the Job Search Training and Networking. This is an evolution of my workshop series that also now includes networking. So talking a little bit about job search training, are we doing this and what is the benefit to that? Well, job search training focuses on the skills that we use when we're searching for work. This is searching for a job, applying for a job, writing our resume, conducting an interview, etc., etc. Quite oftentimes, but not necessarily always, these skills may or may not have little or absolutely nothing to do with the job itself, but are critical for presenting to the employer why you are the best fit for the job. A good example of this might be a maintenance person, someone that goes around, fixes machines, takes care of damages to buildings, things like that. That's what the qualifications that they're going to be hired on. However, that's not necessarily what they're going to be judged on. They're going to be judged on their ability to write a resume, articulate themselves in a cover letter, things like that. It's also similar to buying a car or a house. It's not necessarily something that you do every day. This is something that we have to do every 5 or 10 years or so. And we work on these skills, develop these skills, and then once we have a car, we have our home, we have our job, we put these skills to the sideline and they collect dust over time. When we find ourselves in a need again, it's important that we polish off our skills as well as review some of the current information and trends because sometimes these can happen to change over time. Anybody who was around before the internet was around will tell you things were quite different before Indeed, before word processors, things like that. So networking kind of goes hand in hand with job search training. Sometimes they can fall into the same circle. Sometimes they're totally separate. But it can be a vital part of our job search efforts. And sometimes we can even leverage our personal network to circumvent the hiring process entirely. It is also a skill set all on its own, which may be something that is in demand in the current position that you're looking for. Having a strong network can also provide you with opportunities for growth and additional training, forming different types of partnerships with other agencies or individuals. And it's all, at the end of the day, it's a form of personal marketing. How well you can network, pitch yourself, present your company that you're with to other individuals that will be interested. And it's something that can also go beyond our professional life and touch into our personal lives. So a little bit about myself. My name is Eric. I started off in food service and retail, where I gained a strong affinity for work ethic and how to work efficiently. I then proceeded into Conestoga College's Human Services Foundation and Social Services program that gave me a very keen understanding of social dynamics and communications, the way that we speak to one another, communicate to one another, the way that our words can have an impact on the people hearing them. From there, I did a couple of contracts for the Region of Waterloo's Employment and Income Support as a case manager for the Ontario Works program. This was working directly under the Ontario Works Act, and I learned how to translate government jargon. Sometimes this paperwork can be very complicated, and it's a skill set that I had to learn how to read and interpret that. From there, I went back into private work as a customer consultant for a company called GT French Paper, which dealt with small, medium-sized businesses in their packaging, janitorial, and food service industry. So this really started to give me an understanding of the business mentality, as I was quite often dealing with different bosses, managers, things like that. I graduated from there into automotive sales and a leasing consultant for General Motors, which I learned a lot of the things that I had learned about with my communications in college, now applying in a different lens, learning more about the process of convincing somebody to see your line of thinking, as well as how to qualify somebody with probing questions in order to position a value-based pitch. I leverage these skills into an employment client coordinator with the March of Dimes Employment Services, assisting people with disabilities enter or re-enter the workforce. This gave me a lot more understanding on the employment and job search skill side of things, such as writing resumes, conducting yourself during an interview, as I was quite often engaging with hiring managers one-on-one, having them review my clients' resumes, getting their feedback in the moment, and as well as hearing from them exactly what it is that they looked for in a potential job candidate to fill their various roles. I then joined the Career Education Council as their employer liaison specialist, and also proceeded into being a program coordinator for the Connect Ed Working Circles program. So I've done a lot of networking on both roles in order to engage with various partnerships for all the endeavors that the Career Education Council has, as well as the Connect Ed Working Circles program. So during this series of workshops, we're going to be covering a number of things. On the job search training side of things, I like to give an inside look on the recruitment process from the perspective of the hiring manager. I find a lot of the existing workshops out there, they're for job seekers and they take the perspective of the job seeker. However, I like to reflect on the other side of the table, as with a better understanding of what the hiring manager is going to be going through can help you understand what decisions that you can make during your application process in order to make sure that it is most well received. We're going to be looking at some of the different methods and strategies that we can use to engage with our hiring manager at the various stages of hiring, and how we're going to do employer research in order to tailor our applications to gain maximum results. On the networking side of things, I'm going to help you understand the nature of networking and help you recognize your existing personal network that you already have. And then I'm going to attempt to equip you with some tools and strategies for networking, and how to expand and maintain the network that you have. We're also going to explore the perception of value and how to deliver effective pitches or proposals. Now, a few basic terms and understandings I'd like to review that are going to kind of fit into both categories. The first one I'd like to talk about is the difference between price versus value. This comes from my days as a salesman. However, it applies both to the hiring market as well as our personal network. Price is usually a form of currency, a money, or an experience, something we have to do. Whereas value is the regard that something is held to deserve. Some people might use price and value interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. And as my sales manager used to love to say, price in the absence of value is meaningless. The moment that you have the perceived value exceed the asking price by $1, you can go ahead and you can close that deal. Everybody has a different way of interpreting value. Again, to go along with the car analogies, some people are looking at gas efficiency, something that's cheap to maintain. Some people want safety ratings to keep themselves well protected. Some people want a lot of space, enough space to fit in their golf clubs. There's so many different features to a car. I could spend all day talking about the value and benefits of any particular vehicle. But if my customer doesn't see value in those particular benefits, I'm just wasting my time and I'm wasting their time. Therefore, I have to be able to understand my customer's perception of value so I can present that to them first and foremost to be able to convince them that it's worth the price that I'm asking for. The same is going to be said whether you're networking or you're applying for a job. What it is that the employer values is what you need to bring to the table and present first so that they see that potential within you. So as we always like to say, we don't sell the car, we sell the next step in the process. So I'm going to try to explain some of the different steps that we're going to be taking along the journey and how to position ourselves in order to get to the next step of the process rather than the job at the end of the day. So a couple of people I'm going to be referring to constantly throughout these workshops. The first one is our favorite villain of the day, Johnny Jobseeker. Johnny Job Seeker, you can see he's sitting at home, he's on his computer, probably in his underwear. He doesn't even need to bother getting dressed. He's got no job, he's got nowhere else to be. And he sits there with his one resume and he sees jobs and he applies instantaneously. He doesn't bother reading the description of the job. He doesn't bother to look up information about the company. He just sees that they're hiring and he hits apply now and sends off that resume. He could do this up to 50 times a day, but for some strange reason, he's really having a hard time finding work, and no employers are emailing him back asking him to interview. I wonder why that is. And on the other side of the table, we have the hiring manager. This is a very busy person who has a lot of their own responsibilities on their shoulders already. And in addition to that, because they had one of their staff member leave, they're also responsible for covering the duties of that missing staff member. So they already got kind of a full calendar. Now they got to add more items to that calendar of whatever it is that their missing staff is. In addition to that, they also have to start creating job postings and conducting interviews to try and find a replacement for that staff who's gone missing. Their phone and their email are being flooded with applications, people calling in to see if they got their resume, job developers seeing if they're interested in hiring the client. It's shutting down their normal methods of communication so that their normal customers cannot make their way to his phone. Then they're supposed to make these very big decisions on who's the most qualified person based on very little information that's contained in a resume or in a 20-30 minute job interview. Anytime they make a mistake in this process, there's huge costs that are associated with that. In our workshop series that we'll be following up with, there's going to be 3 on each side of things, and they can be kind of interchangeable. Some of the things that you'll learn in job search training will apply to networking, and some of the things in networking are going to refer back into the job search training side of things. Again, there's a lot of overlap, but there's also individual elements. So for job search training, we'll have our employer's value module, where we'll learn more about how employers may perceive value, especially on an entry-level employee. We're also going to take a look at resume content and design. These are 2 separate elements that we can work with. However, there's a lot of overlap that lands between them in order to create one of these documents. And we're going to learn how to prepare for an interview in the very most basic way. As far as networking goes, we're going to talk about networking basics, some of the different elements that are involved with personal networking or professional networking. And we're going to talk about some of the tools that we can take advantage of in these networking situations as well. We're also going to talk about how to deliver effective pitches and presentations, whether this is something we go in blindly with our traditional, AKA elevator pitch, or how to use value-based qualification questions in order to position our presentations to reflect the value of the person that we're meeting with.